Alright, everyone. This was supposed to be a stream, but I figured this might be better with no extra input so I can just keep everything very organized. Today is June 24th, 2022, when the ruling of, there's a specific name for it, but functionally Roe v. Wade has been overturned. And I want to say that we have to, on the progressive side of things, work towards reinforcing several things, including not only returning a Supreme Court ruling that federally stations abortion rights as a healthcare need, just as it is, also protecting and preventing overruling on things that that could potentially affect gay marriage in the United States, access to contraception, and anti-sodomy law prevention. So basically, there's a ruling that stated that making anything, as far as any laws or regulations against things considered sodomy, would be unconstitutional. We need to reinforce and protect these things from being overruled at all. If these things are at risk, and if things get overruled, what does it mean? So, inevitably, I think they will be reinstituted, but sooner is better in that regard, and we want to wait as little as possible to make sure these things are reinstituted. We want to make sure that people's civil liberties and rights are maintained and restored. I think that also constitutional amendments that can be much harder to overturn should be put in place. So that's just, I kind of want to get like a thesis-y concept out there. Because I don't think this is the end of it. I think this could end up being something that helps to solidify rights to access abortion in a much more significant way than just the Supreme Court ruling of Roe v. Wade, but unfortunately involves this current loss. I have some articles pulled up. I think it's important to say that on the top, just off the top of my head, a lot of communities of color, a lot of low-income communities, especially populations with little to no sexual health education, will be affected significantly by a lack of access to abortions. Reproductive rights and access to reproductive health care is essential, and low-income populations are disproportionately affected by a lack of access to these resources because they lack the resources to go to a different state to receive abortions at the moment. And now there is a lot of concern that state by state laws can be made to prevent abortions from being available to people in an entire state, so people have to go to different areas of the country in order to acquire them. It also gets at the issue that a lot of the proponents of the anti-abortion, anti-freedom focused groups, if we dare call them the regressives, they're also against sexual health education, which can not only help prevent instances of rape later in people's lives. It's important to say that sexual health education is very, very important in preventing SA, in increasing effective reporting of SA for several populations. And I've heard some pretty good arguments for sex ed. at various stages of life, including for people below high school ages, to teach consent, to teach several things that would go into those interactions before you even need to talk about biology. And considering those things is important, it is essential, it cannot be ignored, and it is something that is severely underserved in this country, or underprovided, whatever. Sexual health is a absolute necessity. So there's a big problem in that regressive party politicians and general proponents of that side of the aisle, unfortunately, don't understand the value of what's proposed in general statistical understanding of things, is that when you have an increased understanding of biology, sexual health, how to use contraceptives, how reproductive systems work, you have fewer instances of pregnancy. With fewer instances of pregnancy, you can have fewer abortions. So, functionally speaking, if you want to prevent abortions from occurring without, taking away people's freedoms and rights, you would increase sex ed. You would increase the availability of comprehensive sex ed. And data has proven this out. Here we go. The good old ACLU, who is going to become our stream fundraising target at this point in the best way, is who we're looking to right now for the source. And I'm just going to read along. Researchers from the University of Washington found that adolescents who receive comprehensive sex ed education are significantly less likely to become pregnant than adolescents who receive abstinence only until marriage or no formal sex education. A survey of 1,719 teens, 15 to 19. Let's see. Results are promising for comprehensive sex education, according to Pamela Kohler. It's not harmful to teach teens about birth control in addition to abstinence. Study joins a host of others. I mean, I guess that first line is fine too, but if I'm going to make sure all of this is linked in the description for when this is uploaded to YouTube. If you want to prevent abortion, you prevent pregnancy. You prevent pregnancy with comprehensive sex ed. Easy enough. You can't be against both of these things and consider yourself reasonable or wanting to have a solution, because if your solution is have nothing available and just have the kid if you mess up and get pregnant, it's not reasonable. It's not reasonable whatsoever. The Center for Reproductive Rights says, what if Roe fell? Mississippi will enforce a 15-week ban, and up to half the states will likely ban abortion in the days and weeks ahead. Examines laws and Constitution court decisions on abortion. So, let me make sure. Okay, so it's capturing everything. Abortion will remain legal in New Jersey, New York. So that's what blue means. Statutory protection for abortion is a fundamental right, and the state's highest court recognized the fundamental right of a woman to control her body and destiny under New Jersey Constitution. Legal in New York, 2019. Comprehensive abortion right legislation expanding access to abortion care in the state. 2022 enacted additional protections for abortion providers and helpers. Okay. Vermont, Maine legal comprehensive rights legislation. Good. Connecticut, Maine legal in Connecticut enacted additional laws to expand access. Now in Massachusetts, so this is when we see stuff coded as yellow. Let's check out the other blues real quick. Hawaii. Here we go. State enacted initial laws to expand. So, good in Hawaii, Cali. Remained legal in Cali. State's highest court recognized abortion rights in California Constitution 1969. 4 years before Roe, state law. Perfect. 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 Expanding abortion acts as well in Washington. Illinois recognized the right to abortion in the state's constitution. Cool. Maine. So these are the yellow states. Maine legal. Express protections for abortion. Maine has enacted few restrictions on abortion access. And passed comprehensive abortion rights legislation. So I guess yellow. Does it say protected is yellow? So that means protected, but expanded access not so much. Here we go. Florida. Abortion will remain legal in Florida. The state's highest court has recognized the right to abortion under the Florida Constitution. However, 2022, 15-week ban that providers are challenging. Good, because 15 weeks can sometimes be too early to tell. So protected, but like, I don't see Florida being the best at this because Florida has not been the best legislatively, particularly in 2022 and roundabouts, like even in just 2020 in general. Let's look at the orange first. I don't want to see the reds, and then there's deep red. So orange is not protected. Red is hostile. Maroon is illegal. Jeez. Virginia. Abortion will remain accessible in Virginia, but without legal protection. In 2020, Virginia repealed numerous medically unnecessary restrictions on abortion access. What? Repealed numerous medically unnecessary restrictions. I want to make sure. Revoke or annul. Okay. So they revoked numerous medically unnecessary restrictions. Does that mean... So it's less protected because of those? I mean, I don't understand fully. Puerto Rico. They moved to prohibit or severely restrict abortion. Currently prohibits abortion except when therapeutic or to protect health or life. So that's only when absolutely medically necessary. Okay. In New Mexico. Will remain accessible in New Mexico. Have not determined whether the state constitution protects the right to abortion. So it's undefined in New Mexico. New Hampshire. Appealed a pre-Roe ban on abortion, but state law does not. So it's not okay. So that makes sense for not protected. I don't agree with not protecting it. I think so. That's kind of a big issue. Is that now with what happens with Roe v. Wade is that it's become a states issue. It's a states based, like where it's legal or not. I think this is where a constitutional amendment and a more progressive Supreme Court, hopefully in the relatively soon future or near future, can solidify and very, very significantly solidify the constitutional and legal right to abortion for people. Let's look at some red. That's Texas. Will likely try to prohibit abortion in 2021. Texas enacted SB 8, a 6-week ban. That's way before most people know. With private right of action that allows anyone to sue abortion providers or helpers in Texas. Since it's been in effect since September 1st, 2021. Has enjoined pre-Roe ban on abortion. Medically unnecessary restrictions make it difficult for people to access abortion care in the state. So that's what these are. begun to enforce its trigger ban to prohibit abortion entirely. So that's in South Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and Kentucky. From the looks of it, wow. It's just, if you're in the Northeast, if you're in the West, you're going to have to really, like, bust your ass if you're in the Midwest to try to get services. It sucks. And then again, this disproportionately affects low-income populations. It can disproportionately affect people of color. It can disproportionately affect any population that has trouble having access to transportation and time off from work to have these services acquired, to acquire these services. Unbelievable. Okay, I thought this was important to look into. The negative health implications of restricting abortion access. Professor of the practice of public health and coordinator of the Women in Health Initiative at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. The trend over the past several decades is clear. Safe and legal abortion has become more widely accessible to women globally, with nearly 50 countries, including Mexico, Argentina, New Zealand, Thailand, and Ireland, liberalizing their abortion laws. During the same period, however, a few countries have made abortion more restricted or totally illegal, including El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Poland. This is a good point, too, here. Even while Roe is in place, many people are currently unable to receive abortion care. That's why I think a silver lining to recovering abortion rights can actually lead to greater access, because it would involve federalizing and instituting abortion as a right federally, and making it an amendment, I think, would be a much, much better touch. I'm going to bring our volume up just a hair. I think it's important to consider that as an option, because it was still a little bit too scattered as far as like where it was or wasn't accessible. Despite the setback that this entails, the current overturning of Roe v. Wade, I think there's a way to turn this into a positive in hopefully swiftly. Bucking back against this ruling and getting abortion instituted as a federal right for all people, and increasing access to reproductive health care. It's quite important. I believe so, at least. Let's continue. Abortion would remain legal in 21 states and could immediately be prohibited in 24 states and 3 territories. Millions of people would be forced to travel to receive legal abortion care, something that would be impossible for many due to a range of financial and logistical reasons. Doesn't surprise me because of the depolarization that characterizes public views on abortion and the growing power and relentless efforts of anti-choice groups. Furthermore, it does not surprise me that because of the important gender gap that exists in this country, due to the lack of strong, consistent policies and legal frameworks to support women in their efforts to better integrate their reproductive and professional roles and responsibilities. Let's see. How do laws that restrict abortion access impact women's health? Restricting women's access to safe and legal abortion services has important negative health implications. We've seen that these laws do not result in fewer abortions. Instead, they compel women to risk their lives and health by seeking out unsafe abortion care. According to the WHO, 23,000 women die from unsafe abortions every year, and tens of thousands more experience significant health complications globally. Banning abortion in the U.S. would lead to a 21% increase in the number of pregnancy-related deaths overall, and a 33% increase among black women, simply because staying pregnant is more dangerous than having an abortion. Increased deaths due to unsafe abortions or attempted abortions would be in addition to these estimates. Wow. Back alley abortions would be the last resource for women with no access to safe legal services. The horrific consequences of such abortions will become a major cause of death and severe health complications for some of the most vulnerable women in this country. Because I was speaking with my partner about this earlier. We are not shocked that this happened, but at the same time, it's still really hard to stomach. Jesus. This is fine. So we're not going to necessarily need these articles, but let's see. And so basically, I'm going to include all of this in the details. This was part of the conservative Supreme Court justices' plans, essentially. So Amy Coney Barrett's, as well as other, we're going to call them regressives from now on. It's my new rhetoric for that, just because, screw them. I am done with them. The Regressive Party in the United States has decided to strip back rights, take away options for people in potentially financially and socially vulnerable positions. And honestly, so this is a good point to sort of transition back to the to my whiteboard, my notepad whiteboard. We need something very important in the United States, aside from getting money out of politics. So, what was it? There's a certain ruling that affected donation tracking and the amount that people could donate in the United States. So we have to get money out of politics, flat out. And we also need I've been thinking of a cheeky way of talking about this, but we need a restraining order of church and state. We need the church and state to stay significantly apart, not just separation. We need. Would it just be restraining order? Yeah, restraining order of church and state. Just a full giant divide between, and not saying that people with religious affiliation couldn't be in power, right? But you need a good check and balance system for that, just because you don't want people legislating their religion towards anybody. And when you're legislating one religion's preferences, you're going to severely limit a lot of people. The whole concept of separation of church and state also is a protection for every religious group and non-religious groups. So I think that's an absolute requirement at this point moving forward, is keeping anything that goes without an evidence-based reason, without some version of data that can be proven and tested and peer-reviewed. If you're trying to legislate your religion into law without, and honestly, just don't legislate religion into law, right? But if you're trying to put something into law without evidence-based and tested reason, it shouldn't be allowed, unless you have like we need comprehensive gun laws in the United States. We need to close loopholes so people have a harder time acquiring certain types of weapons. We need to increase access to mental health care. We need to increase access to so many other resources, not restrict them. But something we should restrict is the ability of anyone to enact into law a norm of their religion that belongs nowhere near a legislative body. Have that at home. Do it in your free time. I don't care. take it out of our laws, take it out of the lives of people who do not consent. So I think that's something important to consider. And again, it would protect people from being... If you don't consent to be in part of a group of people that has a shared belief, you shouldn't be forced to adhere to those beliefs, you know? But that's the thing, is like, you don't do that by restricting access to a basic healthcare thing that is necessary, because education-wise, we are not granted the appropriate resources as well. Here's a Politico article. I was a little confused at first. This image seems to be pro-life. The three Dem-appointed judges, Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan, working on one or more dissents. According to the person, Chief Justice John Roberts will ultimately vote. Whether he will join an already written opinion and draft his own is unclear. To the extent that the betrayal of the confidence of the court is intended to undermine the integrity of the operations, it will not succeed. The singular and Regius breach that trust that... Oh yeah, because there was a leak. That was one of the things that this it leaked from like some draft decision, and then okay, that wasn't terribly informative. What the hell? What the fuck's wrong with people? That's the thing, right? Like, if you don't want to get an abortion, just don't get it. But don't take away the rights of other people to get necessary services, especially if they do not want to have a kid. They shouldn't, have to have a kid. Also, like, I've seen some statistics show that unwanted pregnancies result in, unhappy people. Unhappy people tend to not be happy, as one would suggest. Unwanted pregnancies tend to have just worse outcome, right? Because if you have fewer access to resources, if you just have reduced economic and social and educational opportunity, it's just a very different outcome for people. And forcing people to have children that they don't want to have because they're either not ready, or they're not at a stage of life where they've completed enough education where they feel like they can provide for a child. It's basically gone to a state-by-state thing now, and that's upsetting. Let's see. Abortion is a human right. Yep. Friends don't let friends vote. Regressivist. 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court ends nearly 50 years of abortion rights. Yeah, I'll share all this in the description. So other rulings at risk are the ones that affect the allowance, or it's the one that currently prevents the creation of laws that are anti-sodomy, which would affect, for the most part, non-straight couples, or like anyone who's in a genderqueer relationship, whatever, right? Like if you're not a cis-het couple, it's more likely going to affect them. Though I think some degree of malicious compliance, if that ever fell through, could maybe be helpful, maybe not. I think it would be unfortunate for things to go there, though, honestly. How do we prevent rolling back more rights? We need to support organizations that will fight for the preservation of these rights, that will buck back against the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and that can help better solidify the placement of abortion gay marriage, all the banning of anti-sodomy legislation, and honestly, just we need to get protected groups constitutionally in constitutional amendments, so it's harder to overturn. So it's not even worth it for the regressive party of the United States to attempt to overturn it. Screw them. They're not. They can just walk right off and not, interrupt anyone's rights. It's really, it's they have an anti-freedom and anti-rights perspective, and it's really, really incredibly regressive and harmful, especially to marginalized populations. Is there hope? Yes. I think that there's going to be a way to find... I think there's going to be a way to solidify the rights of people in a way that wouldn't have been possible if we were just using these older rulings. By challenging these things, I hope that we can get some very, very strong progressive organizations and just other organizations such as the ACLU to fight back against rolling back rights for people that are medically necessary, that should be considered part of healthcare. I think we can solidify much better standing for a lot of these things by fighting back now and protecting these rights for generations so they never have to worry about these rights being taken away ever again. Yeah. And again, to getting money out of politics would be the thing. That and a restraining order of church and state. Church thought processes, regardless of the church. Don't give a shit. Don't care whatsoever. If you're basing a ruling or a legislation on my religion says this, fuck your religion, right? Do that at home, live your life, be happy. Do whatever you want, right? You wouldn't want that applied to you from another religion, even if it's from another sect from your same theoretical religion, right? Screw your belief system. You have to do the thing that's going to apply to a whole country. You can't legislate from your own preference. You have to legislate from a place of evidence and just a factual basis. I don't know if there's anything else to say. I will have to edit because YouTube. But yeah, how do y'all feel? What's the way forward from this? This is probably a spicy video for some, so if you disagree, you're anti rights and anti-choice, so I don't particularly care what you think. You can go get educated, go learn a few things, go touch grass. It's quite nice. And yeah, you don't need to get an abortion if they're available, right? It's like if you're at a supermarket, you don't need to buy the potato salad, right? But you know what? If you need potato salad, you get it. Or not. Do whatever you want. Live your fucking life, but that's for your life. It's not for anyone else's. So fuck off if you think you can control anyone else's life. Bye.